Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Paris Air Show at the historic airfield in Le Bourget that's outside the French capital. Our coverage here is sponsored by L3 Technologies and Leonardo DRS. And we have with us now Lieutenant General Olivier Taprest, who is the Chief of Operations for the French Air Force. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Thank you to you for this interview.
It's an honor to talk to you. You gave a great briefing on French Air Force operations worldwide, some of the lessons learned from that, and you also highlighted risks and challenges for the future. I want to start first. It's amazing, and I asked this question of General Leonardo also, that of 42,000 people in the French Air Force and 550 frontline airplanes, 100 of them are airplanes are deployed and 6,000 airmen. You have 1,800 just in the European area and in the Middle East executing missions. We talked to General Palomeros, former Chief of the French Air Force, former Supreme Allied Commander Transformation, who noted that the A400M is all over the world right now. The 5 airplanes are deployed and serving, and I want to ask you about that too. The first question I want to ask you is, what are some of the techniques, new concepts you're using to try to get the most out of the force without wearing out equipment and people? What are the new ways you're operating to be able to sustain this pace of operations? Because President Macron has said he wants to give more money, but at this point, the French Air Force doesn't have more money.
Yeah, first I would like to mention that we are very heavily engaged in operations, and we are engaged at a level which is twice the size we are made for such engagement. So for us it's very difficult to sustain this level of engagement, and in a short term we really have some difficulties to sustain this engagement. The main difficulty is to regenerate human resource potential, to train our people to be then sent in operations. It's true for crews, but it's also true for technicians. So it's true that we need rapidly more budget and more people in the Air Force to be able to sustain this level of operations.
When it comes to lessons learned, what are the lessons learned from your operations that are going on in Africa? You had a couple of slides that you put up on that. And I'd also like to ask you first that, but then the lessons you're learning in Syria and Iraq operations as well.
Maybe it's not exactly a lessons learned, but first I would like to mention that it's essential to be able to operate against any sanctuary where there are terrorist groups fighting, and where there are terrorist groups planning terrorist attack here in France or in Europe. So the first challenge is to be able to sustain the same level of engagement as the one we have right now. Regarding lessons learned, one is very easy. There is no operation on the ground without air support. And the support we provide to ground troops is strategic. It's not a tactical support, it's a strategic support. There are also political effects. Don't forget that our mission is not only a tactical mission, but there are political effects. For example, just after the terrorist attack in Paris, we could provide retaliation missions the day after the terrorist attack. That's a political effect, for example. But the mission of close air support we are making in Iraq or in Syria have really a strategic impact, a strategic effect, since the ground troops don't go forward, don't progress against the enemy if there is not this support by the air, from the air.
What are some new operational concepts you're developing to deliver those kinds of effects, whether in Africa, whether in the Middle East, or even, if necessary, for example, against a high-end challenger, for example, like Russia?
One concept is, for example, the actionable intelligence, what we call the actionable intelligence. It means we put together different assets providing intelligence, but also fighters or any other platform providing kinetic impact, and we operate together all these assets to be more efficient on the ground.
You mentioned the number of intelligence assets. Your mission is worldwide, but you're also very heavily engaged in France for domestic security missions. Tell us what you told this audience about how many aerial assets are just in this region alone in order to be able to improve the situation, security, and protect not just this air show.
In France.
In France, right. In terms of UAV coverage, in terms of AWAC coverage and everything, was, I think, stunning, especially what you said that whenever you look up, you're probably going to be seen by some form of aerial asset that's looking back at you.
So, as you know, we are using several fighters and AWACS and tankers to provide security here in homeland and to make air policing, which is one of the main missions of the Air Force. So this is not new. We have increased our assets, the number of assets, just after the terrorist attack, the 9/11 terrorist attack. But what is new right now is we may use UAVs to provide support to the security forces, so the French police and gendarmerie. So that's something new, and for the moment it's only an experiment, but we'll see if we can go further.
How has the A400M changed transport operations for the French Air Force? 5 of them are in service now. One of them is over here. It brought over a Caesar artillery piece and dropped it off on Sunday. How important has this airplane been, and how important is it going to be for how you operate?
As I said, it has a little bit revolutionized the way we provide transport and tactical and strategic airlift, because it's an aircraft which provides together tactical and strategic airlift. We need less unload, offload. So we can go closer to the ground troops in the field than previously. Previously, we needed a strategic airlift to go to land on an APOD, and then with a smaller tactical airlift to push freight or people to the advanced troops. And right now, it's easier with the A400M to go directly to the different sectors where our ground troops are deployed. So that's a great progress for us.
Most of the time when folks are talking about air power, it's rare to hear somebody talk about air superiority the way you did today. Why did you go out of your way to highlight the necessity of air superiority?
I think it will be more and more necessary. And as you say, I think that people have forgotten that previously, especially during the Cold War, that was something classical to have opponents in the air, or also ground-to-air missiles to defend any kind of area. But since 1990s, it was no longer in the mind of our political people. So, but right now, we are again facing this kind of threat. For example, in Syria, where there are some powerful, I would say, ground-to-air systems, and so we have to operate in this area. However, and another example is in Africa, where different systems are sold by Russians, the Chinese, to different countries, and we may be facing this kind of system if we had to operate in these countries. So it's absolutely necessary to maintain this capability to operate in contested areas, because of course air superiority, air supremacy is absolutely necessary to be deployed, engaged in any kind of operations. So to do that, we have the Rafale. It's quite a good aircraft, and there are different standards coming in the future that will be more and more efficient against this kind of threat.
Are you satisfied right now that you have the capabilities to get into that? You also talked about access denied, and you're talking about that now, anti-access area denial capabilities that Russia, for example, and China are developing. Do you have those capabilities now, and what are the capabilities the French Air Force has to build to be part of that team that can operate in that kind of denied airspace?
I think I can say I'm quite satisfied because the evidence that we can say we are satisfied is that we are operating with the Americans and the British over Raqqa, which is an area which is in the area of those ground-to-air performance systems. So that's kind of proof that we can do it.
Lieutenant General Olivier Taprest, Chief of Operations for the French Air Force. Sir, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you to you.